Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you could join us today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. If it is a character building day, I will make it as awesome as it should be. You are listening to the Motivation Monday Power Hour. I am your host, Motivated Mike. Today's topic is money. But not only money, money and wealth. Now, some people insist that they don't want money. If they tell you this, that is a lie. I wonder what they're lying to you about as well, besides just that. Money, it's a great tool. It allows us to do great things. But let's discuss a key idea. There is a difference between money and wealth. Never confuse riches with wealth. Wealth is much more than just money that you have. It's a mindset. If you take all of my money out of the bank, I'm broke. But if you take the knowledge and experiences out of my head, I become nothing. But what are we going to talk about today? Well, I compiled a short list of things related to money that we should be aware of, things that we should strive to do, habits that we should get into. First, I want to talk about saving. Now, this is an interesting topic. It's pretty self-explanatory, saving. Well, we could choose to buy something or we could just put it in the bank. But how do we know where we could save money in our lives? How many people do you know get really passionate about saving pennies, and then they use that to justify spending dollars? Money that is saved is money that is potentially invested. Let me give you an example of that. For example, the other day I was looking at my budget thinking, maybe I could reduce my budget by reducing just the amount of money that I spend on food. Seems logical, right? And I was thinking, well, I could save a couple dollars per week. And then I thought about it some more, and it's like, well, if I really want to save money, why wouldn't I just move to a cheaper place? Maybe get a roommate and another roommate and just live and save all kinds of money. But anyway, it's things like that. Just saving pennies and using it to justify spending dollars. And then that money that you save, you can invest it. I mean, how many statistics do we know that if you save $1 today with all the interest and everything else, you'd have $2 in 7 years and something ridiculous in 50 years? But record what you buy and compare the luxuries and necessities. Are you buying luxuries or are you buying necessities? Now, I know this can be a really abstract concept. What is a luxury versus what is a necessity? Well, I'm not saying you should just cheap out entirely. Just live your life eating ramen noodles for every meal. I actually know somebody who did that and then they got really sick because they had a vitamin deficiency. So definitely don't do that. Keep a balanced diet and stay healthy. But think about that. Luxuries and necessities. Do you really need to buy this, or do you just want it? Why do you want it? Is it something that you'll buy and then it'll just sit around? If it is, maybe you shouldn't buy it. Another problem that we come into when it comes to saving is we often compare ourselves to others. This one's a pretty big one. We compare ourselves to others. And you know what the old saying is? Winners focus on winning and losers focus on winners. Just do not compare yourself to others. You cannot become rich by following the road to poverty. Now, how many people do you know that they're just not successful yet? Even though we can see them, we may not necessarily want to be following their lead. Just how it is. And I know it's Thanksgiving, and Black Friday just happened. And how many relatives do you know that complain about having too much stuff, and then they have the audacity to go out and buy stuff on Black Friday? Does anyone know someone like that in your family? I know a few like that in my family, but I'm not going to mention any names. They always get upset if I mention them on the radio. But on Black Friday, Everyone thinks they need a bigger TV, but do we really need a bigger TV? Think about it. You focus on the screen, and what happens? Everything else just gets blacked out, just automatically. Without even realizing it, your mind just focuses on the screen. Does it really matter if the screen is 50 inches versus 6 inches on your phone? I mean, it really makes less of a difference than you think. Now I'll bring up my second point on how to achieve wealth, and that is by maintaining your health. Artificial habits are bad habits. Stay off tobacco and drugs. It's a key tip. It's pretty self-explanatory, but a lot of people don't do it. And try and eat healthier too. I know it can be quite the challenge, but if you just make it easy, just start simple. Say, I'm going to eat healthier by eating a nice, nutritious breakfast every day. That's a pretty good place to start. After a while, you'll get that down. Then you could say, I'm going to go for a walk every day. Build another habit. And by building these habits, you realize that it's not too difficult to actually build habits. You can do it. It is possible. You can make those changes. And bad habits, they're passed down from parents to children. They're passed around friends. Children, they look up to adults. You have to have good habits, even if it's just your friends that you're passing your habits on to. Try and brighten up their day. Try and create good things in their life. Help them to grow. And the next thing, keep a clear mind. Now, I talked about meditation and how important it is. It is important. Just clear your mind, allow yourself to relax. Don't get bogged down by stresses. Greatness is a habit, and habits must be worked on. They're not something that just happen one time. It's something that you do it every day, and then it becomes easier. But you got to do it every day. That's the secret. And third, work and invest. And this one's an interesting one. Do what is suited for you by nature. So don't try and just go out on a limb and just say, well, I'm just going to work doing this. I don't know. I guess it's okay. Complacency, it's not a valuable thing. You got to do what you want to do. And you got to know why you want to do it. You got to find your way in life. It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, I know I make it sound so simple to find your way in life. But you just have to, this goes back to keeping a clear mind. You just have to relax, take it easy, and just think, what do I want in life? What do I deserve in life? What should I have? How am I going to get it? What are my plans to achieve it? And probably the biggest tip on working and investing. Avoid debt when possible, except for buying investments that are really going to pay off. Now this one's, when I'm like, what do you mean by investments? Well, that one's a difficult one. Good education is a good investment. If you're speculating on the stock market, that is not a good investment. There are some general fine lines you kind of have to look for when you say you're buying investments. Maybe you're buying a house. That can be an investment. It really can be. But do not use debt to buy luxury items. How many people do you know that they use debt to buy their luxury items in life? I don't know that many because I'm in college, but I'm sure it happens quite extensively just in life. You got to save your money. This goes back to saving. You got to earn interest on your investments. I mean, if you invest today, by the time you retire, that investment could be maybe times 4, maybe even times 5 the price. You don't know. It's quite a big thing. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier, persistence. My previous radio show, persistence. It is the key to greatness. It is the key to success. You got to be persistent. You got to persevere. People with less skill than you have become successful. And what makes them successful? They kept at it. They kept working at it. They kept following their dream. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Idleness, it's very bad. If you're complacent, if you're idle, it tends to bring bad habits that lead to poverty or jail. It's just how it is. I hate to break it to you, but just being idle sometimes isn't a good thing. Now, I'm saying that you should still take time to relax and have fun, but just long term, just doing nothing, just being idle, it's very nasty, folks. Do your part to be successful, and you will become successful. Next on my list, number 4, knowledge of self. Know yourself. Hands are never worth as much as a thinking head. Put your interests ahead of employers. We live in a capitalist society. This one kind of gets lost in the mix. Think about that. Put your interests ahead of your employers. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do a good job while at work. I'm saying that just be aware that if there are other options in life for you, if they suit your own interests better, if you moved on to a better job, by all means you should. It's just how it works. If you have better economic opportunities than your employer is providing, I believe it's justified. And keep in mind, that's a two-way road, too. I mean, employers, they can fire you for pretty much any reason. It's just how it works. And it just happens that way. We live in a capitalist society. But you have to be cautious and be bold. And what I mean by that is that luck is not lasting. You have to surround yourself by the best people and the best tools. You just have to do it. You have to surround yourself with winners. You got to absorb their good habits. You got to learn from them. You got to take the opportunities in life. You have to learn the value of money by experience. That one's a difficult one. Now, what do they say? If you can get money easily come, you can fill in the blank. Easily gone. Easy come, easy go. But some people say that it's easier to earn millions of dollars after the fact than it was to earn their first $1,000. Think about that. I mean, after you get in the habits, after you get that frame of mind, after you start building, it just compiles on itself. It becomes easier and easier. It just becomes a habit. And next, number 5 on my list of how to just develop a wealthy mindset. Continue to learn. But Mike, what should we learn? What should we care about? We should learn about human nature. We should learn about technical knowledge. We should learn about useful trades. We should learn about the rules of the game of life, money management skills. How many times do you hear about young men with money becoming poor? They become poor very easily. And it happens all the time in America, and that's one of the beautiful things in America. You can go from rags to riches, or you could go from riches to rags. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, just a few generations, and it happens. And I hope that you become inspired by that. I hope that you see the opportunity to just go from rags to riches, or maybe you're starting with riches. Maybe you're going from riches to even greater riches. That's good. I encourage that. But wisdom, learning new talents, is an intangible wealth in and of itself. This kind of brings me back to the quote that I had a while back ago. More gold has been mined from the mines of men than has ever been dug out of the ground. That was a quote from Think and Grow Rich. But learn more about things. Learn more about banking, maybe about mutual funds. Maybe you just spend some time learning about the stock market and the patterns that you notice. Maybe just read some books on the topic. There are all kinds of books in the library. If you just go there and just do some digging, you'll find some good knowledge. People that have taken years to learn, and you could just read the book and know what they know immediately. Well, in a few days at least. But let me give you a word of warning here. Still be skeptical of experts. I know I've told you about experts. And why do experts do what they do? Because they get paid to do it. Not all experts are even experts. To become an expert, I believe that you have to be in a position where you have multiple cases that you can, examine, and you have feedback on those cases, and timely feedback too. So if you're making good decisions, you know it'll work. If you're not, or if you're not and it takes too long, you'll never know that you're making mistakes. And that's really what makes an expert. Next on my list, have the right mindset. This one's probably the most important on the list. You have to center your attention. You have to be systematic. Now, I know there's a huge debate, but Mike, should I set goals or should I have systems in place that just slowly get me where I want to go and get me in the direction? The answer is you should have both. You should have goals and you should also be systematic. And you should also watch for innovation. Just look for opportunities in life. If you look for opportunities and get in that mindset of looking for opportunities, you will find more opportunities. You will continue to find opportunities. Spread your investments. Maintain security. I know that you should definitely have investments, but they also should be diversified. You should have diversified investments. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't have your eggs all in one basket. It's just a train wreck waiting to happen, isn't it, folks? I know a lot of people who have done that. I know people who said, "Oh, I'm going to invest all my money in the mining industry because mining is the future." And then one day the price of gold just went down, the price of every other commodity went down in the usual mining cycle. It's a pattern. It's a fairly predictable pattern. It comes in cycles. And then the next day they're like, "Oh, mining is not the future anymore." And it's like, well, you got to have it diversified. In the long run, stocks do all right. They do all right. But in the short run, who knows what could happen? And if you run a business, make sure your goods are of value. Make sure you advertise your services well. And be kind to your consumers. And be charitable. It's not just about the money, it's about making a positive difference in the world. I believe that if you help enough people get what they want, that eventually they will help you get what you want. But definitely have integrity. Definitely have ethics. I know that's something in business that's just kind of gets lost in today's society, but there are still a lot of companies that preserve integrity and do quite well because of it. People trust their business. They take their business there because they're trusted in the industry. And write down your goals. This one's a pretty big one. If you don't write down your goals, you won't make as much money and be as successful as those who do. There was a study at Harvard that 3% of Harvard MBAs make 10 times as much money as the ones who don't write down their goals. So you could imagine that. The Harvard MBAs that write their goals down make 10 times more money than those who don't write their goals down. And these 3%, they didn't just write down their goals on paper. They made plans to accomplish them. They had clear direction in their life that they were trying to go. And here's another interesting fact. 13% who didn't write them down, their goals, but they had them in their mind, had them in the back of their mind and just worked towards them. They were earning twice as much money on average. So now I'm going to ask you, what are your goals? Why aren't you writing them down? Why not? Come up with a good reason for me. Why aren't you writing down your goals? And be sure to set big goals as well. We don't become successful because we set small goals and achieve them, but because we set large goals and reach for them. We have to grow in life. If you just stay in your comfort zone, things aren't going to go as well for you. You're not going to reach your potential. You have to take risks. I know that risks are scary, and we say, oh, we don't want to do that. It's potentially dangerous. There's a chance that we'll get hurt, or that something bad will happen, but you have to take risks. If you don't, you will never reach your potential. You'll never grow. Now, I told one person to write down their goals, and they said, I can't. I have so many of them, and not enough time to write them down. But if you don't have time to write them down, where will you find the time to accomplish your goals? You won't. It's just how it works. You can't write down, or you can't achieve your goals if you don't have clear, defined goals in mind. I mean, it's like you're trying to hit a target that you don't have. It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, you don't know which way you're aiming. You don't know your direction. Now, in school, I once had a teacher that told us to write down 100 goals that we have. 100. I know, this seems pretty crazy. It's a lot, right? But it's important to have multiple goals. We got to have something to do next. Something to look forward to. Something to continue to help us to grow. And they don't all have to be physical. They don't all have to be, oh, I'm going to earn this much money or something like that. It's not really, they don't all have to be that way. They could be, maybe you want to develop a garden. Maybe you want spiritual development. But whatever it is, whatever you're trying to do in life, whether it be learn a new skill or make more money, become more successful, write it down and have a goal. Put a time limit on that goal as well. And you can do it. Envision yourself achieving that goal. Now, for this topic, I don't really have a lot of good sources on talking about money and wealth. But The Golden Rules of Money Making by P.T. Barnum is probably one of the better books that I've read. That one and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So if you want to read any books, you could just go look those ones up online. Maybe go to the library. I think you can find them both on the internet these days. I think you're okay there. But they're good sources. They can really help lead you in the direction you want to go. Now let's talk a little bit more about the philosophy around money. Now money is a very abstract idea. To demonstrate that, I just have this one story for you. There was once an underground gold bank, and this bank, it was developed when all the leaders of the nations came together and decided, well, we need a better system. We're tired of carrying all this gold and wealth around between empires. Why don't we just put it in one bank? And then when we make a deal, we could just move the gold from one vault to another. So they did this. They built this whole little bank. They made it very secure and safe. Put it on an island. They sunk this shaft down and put all the gold in this little pit down there. And they did all of this. And they had their bankers over there keeping records of where the money went, who owes what. And it all worked out very, very well. It worked out remarkably well. Then one day, all of these kings and leaders of these nations came to the bank. And their children said, I want to see the gold room. I want to see the gold. Right? So they had talked to the banker. And they say, we would like to go down to the gold room. And the banker was like, oh no. You can see where this story is going. But eventually what they found out was that because of an earthquake years ago, all the gold was just lost down in the pit. All of it. But, and this happened years ago, but in the books, everything was balanced. Everything was good. The bookkeeping was there. And everybody just accepted it until then. And then they found that out. And that's just kind of a good example of how abstract money actually is. And there's some history behind money. People discovered that coins are heavy. That's basically what happened. They just noticed it and just like, whoa, maybe we could just make it more efficient by just exchanging paper currencies. And the first ones came in the form of a banknote. Very interesting concept. But each bank had its own separate banknotes. You could imagine how confusing this would get if you're a merchant back in the olden days and you travel from city to city trying to get these notes accepted. It can be very difficult. There's a lot of challenges there. And they're usually backed by gold in their home state. But even then, there were problems because not everybody traveled to those places. They would get there and sometimes they would only be offered half of what it was worth or maybe 80% of what it was worth. But these banknotes, they weren't always successful. And a lot of them failed just because of the reserve ratio. The idea that they keep money, and with this money they invest with it to earn interest on it. But then what happens when people realize, hey, they have an awful lot of banknotes in circulation. They all get skeptical, and they come back and try and reclaim the gold that the banknote is worth, right? And that's a problem because sometimes the money is out, it's out earning interest. They're investing it. That's how a bank works. But because of this, people have a certain distrust of banks back then. They don't believe that they can maintain the value of their currency. And that's a lot of how a bank works. They take the money in, they keep a fraction of it at hand for whoever comes in and wants to claim money, but they lend the rest of it out. And that's how it happens. Now, I know in the Great Depression, the banking crisis hit, and FDR would have his fireside chats, and he had to explain to the people how this banking system worked. And what he did to fix that, this was pretty interesting. He ensured all the banks that their money would be kept at a certain value, that if you invested this money, it would not be lost. You can go to the Federal Reserve and get more money. This made him keep the money in the bank and kept the banks from failing. It's a pretty big thing. And in the United States, our currency is backed by gold. It's made by a central bank. So there's the government bank that they made just to print the money, basically. Basically how it works. And they backed it with gold and silver. Now, around the same time, other nations were doing the same thing. They made their own currencies that were backed by gold and silver. But something interesting happened. Around the time of World War I and World War II, no one had any gold besides the United States of America, due to trade imbalances. Everybody was buying goods from the United States to fight the war. So how do these nations back their currency when they don't actually have any money? This is an interesting one. They backed their currency with the US dollar, and the US dollar was backed by gold. And it did happen a few times in history where nations like France came back and said, hey, we would like to trade all of these US dollars for gold. And then the United States started to catch on. They were like, hey, we don't want to be giving out all this gold. We want to keep it for ourselves, right? And that was President Nixon, who took us off the gold standard. And what happened when this money was no longer backed by gold? Something interesting happened. We all just kind of went with it. We didn't make a riot. We didn't make a scene. We just kind of accepted that this money, it's not valuable in itself. It's valuable because we can exchange it for goods and services. It's valuable because of what we allow it to do and what we can do with it. It's a very, very big concept that a lot of people just, it's a very slow concept to catch on. And these days, it seems pretty self-explanatory, but back 100 years ago even, it was a very abstract concept. Another problem with money, well, not with money, but around the idea of money. Some people say that their religion gives money a bad name, that their religion teaches them not to hold on and cling to money, so to speak. I'm not saying you should cling to money, but I'm definitely not calling money as evil. I mean, we hear that all the time, that money is the root of all evil. And sometimes they come up to me and say, Mike, you're moderately religious. How do you make light of this? How do you put context to this idea? And that's an interesting, valid point. It's very valid. God made the resources of the earth for the good people. And many people blame money as the source of evil. But I believe, as good people, that we deserve money. It's just how it works. God made the money for the good people to enjoy. And that's my personal philosophy on it. You could have other religious ideals around it. But I'm just saying, there's no reason to just despise money, so to speak. I mean, is it really the money that is evil? I can think of a lot of good things I could do with $1 million, for example, and a lot of really bad things I could do with $1 million. We are quick to blame money, but fail to blame the people and the motives behind the money. Think about that for a while. Money isn't always bad. It's bad if we allow it to be bad, but it doesn't have to be that way. So, in summary, save money, live healthy, work and invest, get a good knowledge of self, continue to learn, and lastly, have the right mindset. You too can achieve greatness. And now for the news of the week. We have some good stories this week. We have some really inspiring stories. First off, this is a pretty big story that I read. Snoop Dogg, he gave out 3,000 turkeys to families this Thanksgiving. 3,000. There's a lot of acts of kindness that I saw in the news this week, and sometimes it's high tips at restaurants. Sometimes it's just random gifts. But I felt like this one in particular was the one that I should share with you all. I mean, sometimes we think of Snoop Dogg and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like Snoop Dogg. He's a bad influence on the kids and all of this. But you got to look at the positives as well. I mean, he has inspired a lot of people, and we should respect that and honor that. And he gave out 3,000 turkeys to families this Thanksgiving. That's a very generous thing to do. Something that we should appreciate. Do you have anything to add?
Just that Snoop Dogg also started a cooking show with Martha Stewart, I believe.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about that. Tell us more.
That's pretty much all I know. It looks interesting, though, to say the least.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It'll certainly have a... I think they're going to get, like, some celebrities on there and everything. I mean, other than, like, celebrity guests.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
But
definitely sounds like an adventure.
Should be unique.
Yep, definitely. Let's see. We got another story in the news. A man says he can finally go to college after winning the lottery.
Hey, it's a wise investment, right?
That's what I mentioned earlier. Yes, very good investment. Now, this lottery, I want to go a little bit beyond just this story. There's a lot about this lottery business in the recent year or so. It makes it very interesting. So did you know that to make more money, the lottery is making it harder to win?
Wow, I had not heard that.
That's a new update in like January of this previous year, you know. Well, I guess a year old, but still relatively new.
Right.
They're making it harder to win so then they can rake in more money. And this was the logic behind it. So, if less people win, the pots get bigger, correct? And as the pots get bigger, exponentially more people buy tickets. The sales just go up exponentially, and they figured we could really cash out on this one.
They learned that after the what was that, like Powerball, where the pot was over $1 billion.
Something like that, yeah. And the funny thing is, I mean, in all fairness, if we accomplish that, if we won even a fraction of that, even 25 million, I mean, money, we wouldn't really be worried about it for life. I know that some people always chase money, and let me be clear, we should have financial milestones. Maybe one that allowed us to never work again and just make minimum wage on retirement, so to speak. That we could be self-sufficient if we wanted to be. No, I'm not saying you should. It's more fun to continue to grow and take new opportunities. But I'm just saying, though, we should have financial milestones that we set. We shouldn't be just always living in the future in today's better world that we create in our mind. We got to take some time to enjoy the present. And you got to take some time to realize, even if we won the lottery, I mean, we'd be pretty well off with even 25 million. It doesn't have to be $1 billion or $10 billion, any amount. I mean, sure, it makes it more exciting, but is it really necessary? Is it really needed? Well, not really. But how many of your family bought lottery tickets? There's the question. I mean, this Thanksgiving, I noticed that some of my relatives were getting tickets together, pooling money together, trying to get these tickets, you know, and try and win. But you know what's really interesting about the lottery is that even just thinking about winning the lottery often is enough to make people happier. It's a pretty big concept. Just thinking about the money, how they would spend it, it often makes people happier. I mean, it seems irrational, but it does. It's an interesting concept. The next story, this one's a great story. You're going to love this story. So people paid a company more than $80,000 to dig a hole for no reason. Take a guess which company it was. It was a pretty big company, so I'm sure you would have heard of them.
$80,000 just to dig a hole.
For no reason at all.
For no reason. It's a weird one.
Take a guess. It'll be good.
I'll guess Walmart.
I thought you would guess that, but no, it's not Walmart. And thank goodness, because I have stocks in Walmart, so it's kind of these big companies, right? The company was the company that made the game Cards Against Humanity. I'm sure you've heard of that game. It's that game like Apples to Apples, with the slightly less appropriate things. But they raised more than $82,000 to dig a pit for no reason. I'll call it a money pit.
Accurate.
They said they did it to be funny. Now let's be honest here. When we think about this story, you know, in a few years, will we find it funny? Will we enjoy just knowing the fact that they built just a random pit in the middle of nowhere in America, you know?
Probably not.
Just for $82,000. So you wouldn't have donated them any money?
No. I do not see that as a wise investment.
It's not too late. You could still donate. They're still digging.
Tempting.
I noticed they rented some mining equipment there, and they're just digging out this hole. They have their excavator, and they have some trucks, and just what they're doing is they're just digging, just renting out equipment, and it still is a pretty funny story, though. So let's get your opinion. is it more of a waste or less of a waste than the voter recount? I know that's a pretty hot topic issue. Very big. They're recounting Wisconsin, and they're talking about recounting other states. I don't know if they've actually began that or not.
I'd say it's more of a waste because the voter recount at least puts some people at ease for, or maybe not at ease, but might settle a bit of some dispute. I don't see that whole doing anything.
Well, if that's true, maybe we should recount swing states that went to Clinton. Get some fair and balance in there, just...
Maybe.
But anyway, I guess in both situations, it's not a total waste. We still have people that are getting paid to do the work.
That's true.
Somebody is sitting in an office somewhere raking in this money while either counting votes or sitting in the cab of that truck digging that hole. So somebody's profiting off of this, so... Oh, and there's also a live stream of the hole being dug on YouTube. So if you're really curious, not only can you donate money for them to dig this hole, you can also watch them dig the hole. Think about that. You can watch them dig the hole. I know we often don't have enough to do, but you can watch them dig a hole. It's pretty basic. Just have a front end loader, and they're just scooping it up and putting it right in this truck, and that's basically it. But I don't know. You might find it exciting. The rented equipment and all. This kind of brings up another point. Whenever you have a dream and it requires money, never say that you can't raise the money for that goal. If they can convince people to donate $80,000 to dig a hole for no reason, you could open up a business. You could do all these things and convince people to invest in yourself. But the trick to getting others to believe in you is for you to believe in yourself. You just have to believe in yourself. And now for our last story of the day. This one's a pretty interesting one as well. In the United States, in Kentucky, an atheist, he tried to get the license plates, "I'm God." Think about that. He went down to the DMV and he tried to get these license plates that said, "I am God," right? And they refused. They refused to give him the license plates because they said it would offend too many people. So now this atheist, he's trying to sue the government to try and get this license plates.
Of course.
Pretty ridiculous story, right? What's your opinion on this one? I'm curious to hear your take.
That is the story of someone who needs to find something to do with his life, because I don't see much reason for those license plates other than just actively attempting to offend people of opposing views.
I mean, honestly, I kind of think we should just give him the license plates, because it's like, how would that be any less offensive than if he just put on a bumper sticker on the back of the vehicle that said the exact same thing? I mean...
No, I think it's kind of dumb that they refused him, but I also think he needs to find something to do with his life.
I tried to dig a little deeper in this article, and I tried to figure out if the government, if they just try and stay out of the religious aspects of license plates, or if there's a certain, or if they're just, discriminating against just this one in particular. So if they discriminate against everybody's religious license plates, then it's constitutional
really have much
at a minimum.
grounds,
Yeah. And he can't really sue. He's not going to win. But if they deny only that license plates and yet they have, accepted other license plates, well, you might have a legitimate case. It might actually go to court. I don't know. Might actually win.
It's quite possible.
It's a very...
They're suppressing his free speech.
It's a very interesting concept. And that's all I have to talk about today. I hope you really enjoyed today's episode. The next show is on Monday at 4, and the topic will be, I think I'll go with influencing other people as the topic. I know everybody's probably sitting at home wondering, but Mike, how did this company convince them to get $80,000 of donations to dig a hole for no reason? Well, let's talk about that. How can you convince people to just donate money to you? How do you get them to believe in a product? How do you get them to invest? That's a very interesting topic, and I'll share with you a few concepts on how to do that. If you missed any episodes or would like to hear them again, you can find them on YouTube. The channel name is Motivated Mike. I know I haven't uploaded very many recently. I promise I will. Just be patient with me. Been pretty busy with school. It's all right, though. I'll get them up there. Stay wise, my friends. Motivated Mike, out.